take us back to your toughest moment after retiring from the NFL, when you had expressed self-doubt and identity, you losing your identity a little bit. What was that experience like, and what steps helped you rebuild yourself as a leader?
Yeah, man. Well, number one, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Man, when I stopped playing ball, um, I thought I was gonna just ride off into the sunset. Had plenty of money in the bank. We had multiple homes, multiple cars, beautiful family, everybody's healthy. And I thought I was gonna be playing golf and working out when I wanted to work out and helping out in the kids' schools. And that would be it. I would be fulfilled. And that just wasn't the case. And it took me about 8 months to where I was kind of like, okay, this is not what I thought retirement would be like. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be something more than just playing golf and working out when I wanted to. And so I ended up getting that position at at this nonprofit in San Diego. And it just so happened like one of my neighbors was the CEO of it, and she would see me walking the dog and was like, "Hey, Alex, won't you, you know, what are you doing now?" And I told her, and she was like, "Well, how about you be a development consultant for us?" And it sounded fancy to me, so I was like, "Yeah, well, what does a development consultant do?" And she kind of told me about it, and then so I did it, and I did it part time, did it for about 6 months, and then we moved up to Portland, Oregon. And when we got back up, moved up here, it was like the same thing. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, what's going to bring me fulfillment. So I looked in the nonprofit sector, and lo and behold, there was this entry level position, and it was like $45,000, but you'll be doing some of the things that I was already doing in San Diego. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to apply for this, and this was in I want to say this was in 2007. And so applied for this job and, got the job interview. And I went in there and, I'm a former NFL player. You know what I'm saying? I played a lot of years. I made a lot of income, so my confidence is through the roof. The position that I played, I have to have confidence. And so I was very confident going into this job interview. And I didn't know that it would be a life altering interview. And what happened was I went in there and I did my homework, right? I know who they served. I know how they bring in money and all this other things, and how they got started and whatnot. What was the vision? And when she was asking me these different questions, I was answering. I was spot. I was on, right? But then she started asking me questions about me, and everything sounded like football. And if it didn't sound like football, it would come out like, I don't know. I never thought about that. And so she cut the interview short, about 20-minute interview. She cut it short and she told me the truth. She said, Alex, sweetie, you ain't going to get this job. And she said, let me give you a little bit of advice. Before you go on any more job interviews, you need to find out exactly who you are. Shook me to my core.
Wow.
She walked me out, shook my hand, told me good luck. And I went to my car and I cried my eyes out. So this lady who didn't really know who I was, she told me something that I needed to hear. And so that kind of started like this journey of, man, first, who am I? Right? Outside of this football player that I was doing from 13 to 30, now it's like, okay, I can't get wrapped up into what I did. That doesn't define me anymore. you know, and it should have never defined me. You need to know who you are before you go into anything that's going to could interfere with like what you do, right? So you should know who you are, what you stand for, what you love, what you like, what you hate before you go into any type of employment. And so that kind of started me on my journey to figuring like who I wanted to be outside of a football player. That's just what I did. And that kind of got me going on a path of like I said, personal development and leadership. Like leadership is influence. And so who doesn't want to be influential, whether at home, at the job, in your sport? So yeah, man, I just started diving into like who I wanted to become and what type of influence that I want to have.
I want to piggyback off of that, and I appreciate you sharing it because I personally am in that same frame where in this moment of trying to discover who I am personally, and I know our audience members are going to be feeling that as well. What were some of those steps that you took to actually discover who you were beyond football? Because, like you said, from 13 on, that was your identity, so to speak. So, how did you shift that and learn more about yourself in this process? Because you're a grown adult at this point, right? So, what was your process like?
Yeah, well, man, my first thing I need to find out, when they're asking those questions of like, who am I? I don't know, okay, well, what do I like outside of outside of football? And I really had to sit down and think about, man, okay, what inspires me? You know, what was something in my past that, man, I wanted to um, be that type of person, right? Or um or do that thing. And for me, I started to look back and okay, well, how did I get started in the football? This little army brat from Colorado Springs who didn't grow up playing catch or doing football. How did I take from this little skinny kid to doing something, getting paid playing a kids game for a long time? And so I thought about, man, okay, man, I remember this guy, Ron Brown, who uh who kind of got me started in playing. And well, it wasn't even playing because it was at the boys club, but it was more like, man, he inspired me because he used to lift weights and he used to, man, he looked swole up and big and strong. And I was like, man, I want to do that. Man, how do you do that? Why do you do that? And
Yeah.
he, so he kind of took me under his wing and told me how to lift and work out. And I was like, cool, I like this. And then I remember one day he was talking about his younger brother who played football at the University of Oklahoma. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Tell me more about that." And he said, "Yeah, he got a scholarship." And I was like, "A scholarship?" And I was like, I want to say in sixth, seventh grade. And I was like, "Scholarship? What is that?" And he said, "Scholarship, man, that's you get school paid for, you get college paid for." And I was like, "Hold on, your brother on TV, he doesn't pay for school. And it's just because he's good at football." Yeah, pretty much. That changed my perspective on everything. And so I wanted to start to be that person. What Ron was to me, I want to be that person to kids, to help them, you know, uh, whether it's becoming a better athlete, right? And so I kind of got started in that and start training athletes, got certified and yeah, that kind of got me started. And I had a lot of joy. So I figured out like what gave me joy, right? And it wasn't so much about the money. It's like, man, what do I and what gets me up out of bed that I'm like, man, no matter if I'm getting paid or not, I love doing this. I'll do this for free. Football, for a certain amount of time, was that thing. I get up, I play, I'll do this thing, meetings, the hitting, the all that stuff. I'll do that for free. And so I just ask myself, what do I want to do that gets me up in the morning? And so it started off with that, okay, I want to help these young athletes become better so they can be able to use whatever sport as a vehicle to get them what they want. And yeah, man, I started doing that and on that journey, I started to figure out like, man, um, what's this thing leadership? What is it? How do you how do you summon it? Who looks for it? Like exactly what it is, and it's influence. And so that's very valuable, and that's what I do now.
I Man, I find it awesome though, looking back at your experience with Ron Brown, who inspired you to want to inspire others, essentially. And you almost kind of fell into that without maybe even thinking about it or were thinking about it. I find that to be really, really cool. Um, Man, okay. So with you, now you've had. I'm gonna jump back into the NFL, right? You've had a lot of head coaches while you were in the NFL. Is there a story that you could share of maybe like a coach's style that may have like challenged what you currently believed or your self belief at the time, and how does that story translate, or what that coach may have taught you translate to how you lead today, with your own organizations or when you're working with other leaders?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, I'm a big believer in you can learn from anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like you can learn how to do things from people who don't know anything about what you want to do or how you want to go about. You can still have the possibility to learn, even if they do it and you don't agree with it. I've had plenty of coaches that I see and I see how they communicate. I see how they um, or lack thereof build relationships, and I was like, I don't want to do that. If I ever get into coaching, which I do coach high school football, and I can learn something, I can do what you did, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it totally opposite, right? So we have the capability of learning and not just mimicking or um, how people act. I can see it and I'm like, okay, I can learn from that. I don't like the feeling that he or she is giving me. I'm not going to roll that way when I'm in that position, where I'm in that, or I have that platform. But man, one of the coaches who really has made a huge impact in my life was Willie Shaw. And so Willie Shaw coached DBs for decades in the NFL, and I had him just for 1 year. And the thing that made him so unique and different was his perspective on how he coached. He coached at a foundational level, meaning it wasn't just football that he was teaching us. He was giving us basically a foundation of principle that you can apply whether it's in life or in football. And so when you have that, the cool thing is if it's built on foundation and principles, that means, man, it can survive. It doesn't matter what environment that you're in. You have a framework, right? You have a framework. And so when you have a framework, man, imagine having a house, right? And it's built on a strong foundation and you got like the toughest, strongest tools, the wood, all that type of stuff. So when shit hits the fan, man, it ain't gonna fall, it ain't gonna blow over. Man, I got a strong foundation. This house is strong. So you can be confident in that. And that's what Willie Shaw did. And all he did was give us, he said, hey, and this came happen in a conversation, one of our first conversations we ever had, one on one. And he asked me, he said, Alex, do you want to play a long time in this league? And I was like, absolutely. I want to play a long time because for me, I was thinking, if I play a long time, that means I get a lot of money. I get multiple contracts. So I was thinking more financial, right? But he was saying, um, what he told me, he said, if you want to play a long time, you got to master these three things. He said, these three things will give you success. And I was all ears then, right?
Yeah,
And he said, assignment, alignment, and adjustment. And I was like, what? What are you, assignment? Alex, you need to know your assignment. You need to know your job, your role. You need to know inside and out, backwards and forward. I was okay. I know the playbook. Okay, okay. Then he said, okay, do you know other people's jobs and roles? Do you know the strong safety? Do you know what the defensive tackle, the outside linebacker, the nickel? You know, do you know all of their jobs and what their responsibilities are on every play, on every call? And of course I didn't. I just knew me. I just knew my job. He said, Alex, If you want to play a long time, you need to know how you affect how others play, how you do your job affects other people's job and how they do it, and vice versa. How they do their job can affect you.
So good.
You got to be on the same page and not necessarily doing it to take somebody else's job. It's not about that. It's about understanding their role and how they do it, and then holding them accountable. And on the flip side, giving permission for them to hold you accountable. Because if you're not in the position where I'm expecting you, because we're all looking at and we see this, where we're supposed to be, man, you can make my job harder, right?
Yeah.
And so when he broke it down like that, I was like, oh man, you know what I'm saying? So that's a
Yeah.
principle. So I take that and I can take that into any environment and make it relatable. No matter, and I coach, I consult, I speak to Fortune 500 companies. But that's a foundational principle. Knowing your role, knowing your assignment. The second thing is alignment, right? Making sure you're aligned correctly before the snap of the ball, right? Because if you're misaligned even by an inch at that level in the NFL, which is the highest, if you're misaligned by an inch, you're giving your opponent, your you're giving them an advantage over you before the play is even snapped. You're losing. You're putting yourself in a position to lose. And I was like, man, well, yeah, if I'm guarding Jerry Rice, who's the best football player, best wide receiver on earth,
Yeah.
and I'm misaligned by a little bit based off how I feel or whatever, man, I'm already giving him the keys to the kingdom.
He's
And the
eating.
ball
He's
hasn't
eating.
even been snapped. Yeah. So I was like, I need to be aligned correctly. And it's in the playbook how we were supposed to align, depending where the ball is and where my help is. So you have to be aligned correctly. So you have to be intentional of how you're aligned. And so I can take that into my entrepreneur. You know, hey, what is your uniqueness? What's your value system? Um, what is your overarching, what you want to do and how you want people to treat each other? And then are you aligned to that? Are people in the organization, are they aligned to that? Because if you're not, you're going to fail. So, and then the last part is the adjustment part. And so and Willie told me, he said, Alex, during his first practice, Alex, you wasn't ready to adjust. You need to be ready before you line up. Like not everything is going to be perfect. There's going to be a shift. There's going to be some type of motion. They can call an audible. You need to be thinking ahead on the what if scenarios. What if my guy goes in motion? What does his defense change? How does my job now change based off of what the offense just did? Because it always does. All right. It's not pee-wee football where you just line up and hike the ball and then, you play. No, they're trying to um, manipulate. They're trying to see what you're doing so they can have a plan, right? An offense, a good offense does that. They don't just hike the ball. They want to put you in motion. They want to see, okay, what is we think here, man to man? Oh no, it's zone. Matter of fact, it's cover three. You know, so we need to be ready for these different adjustments. So I can talk to corporate America, man. What adjustments happen or need to happen for you to have success when things don't go the way they're supposed to go. You have a shipment that's in the Pacific. What if there's a storm and half of your products is buried in the bottom of the sea, right? You need to be thinking ahead, like the what if scenarios. How are we going to communicate this? How are we going to present this to stakeholders? What's our alternative route? How can we mitigate the damages? Like you need to be thinking ahead. So those three principles, man, has really, and because I I I followed those principles, That's the biggest reason I played 8 years, which only 3% of NFL players do play 8 or more years. It wasn't because I was fast or I was stronger than most cats or bigger. Those that definitely wasn't it. It's because I mastered those three principles and I applied it every day in practice because it became important to me. I learned it and it was a framework. It wasn't a process. People talk about trust the process. I don't believe in trusting processes. You trust a framework, right? And so I use those same three things, man, because they gave me success in football. I started to use those same three principles when I was stuck in life after football. And I started to do, okay, what's my assignment, right? Which
Mm,
is like, what's my role in life? What do I want to do? I want to help others. And I want to be specific. For right now, I want to help out these young athletes. Okay. How do I need to align? I need to have good character. I need to make sure I'm knowledgeable in that space and I can be able to teach different principles. And then the adjustment part, I need to adjust number one, like how I view myself. I can't
mm,
just be a football player. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody is moved or influenced by what I did, the platform.
yeah.
So I need to adjust my character, and a lot and really how I communicated with others. Right. For me, man, if you couldn't do anything for me, I wasn't doing anything for you. All my relationships, I had to adjust my relationships. Right. And then for none of the strongest one, the relationship I have with myself. So I had to um I had to make different adjustments and not be and not I need to somebody held a mirror. It was my coach, my leadership development coach. He held a mirror up to me one day and he said, you're very transactional. And I see how you operate, how you move, and how you treat people differently. That's dangerous.
Mm,
You should treat everybody the same. Treat them like shit or treat them like, man, you're very happy to see them. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't treat this person this way, this person that. No. And so I was like, that's how you gain respect. You
mm.
being consistent in how you treat people.
I
So
love that. I love that,
yeah,
man. I love the aspect of removing transactional from your framework, right? Because I think that is a game changer that most don't think about in their life. I know I've recently had to, we've talked about it in our sessions. I'm moving away from the transactional life of trying to open myself up a little bit more. So it's awesome to hear you as well having to go through that. I wanted to touch on something that you said, and you said you had to view yourself differently. I'm a big big I enjoy self-talk. I think self-talk is one of the most important things out there. What were some of the things that you were saying to yourself as you were going through, say some of the self-doubt or going through when your coach held up the mirror saying, "Hey, you're really transactional." What's the self-talk like coming from being, you know, an NFL star to not knowing who you are to walking into leadership? What was that like?
man, for me, it was the same thing. And I learned this is you have to be able to um, not forget about your successes and what got you success, no matter what the environment is, because you can borrow that same way of thinking, right, and place that into a different environment. Um, and you also have to not forget about the failures, because if you just think about and start to believe in just your successes, what tends to happen is arrogance, right? So for me, it was like, okay, I never need, I'm not going to forget about the successes that I've had on the field and off the field, right? Because when you get down in a bad day, and when when you have a bad day and things are you're not having successes, matter of fact, you're having failures, that can really help you. It's like, man, hold on, I'm having a bad day. Why am not? I had a great day yesterday. What are some of the things that help me get to that success? Okay, I can believe in that. Okay, you also have to keep failures close by, right? Because if you just excuse me, believe in just the successes and you start to believe you can do anything, everything, that's when that arrogance comes, right? So it's a balance where you have to keep your failures close by because he's like, hey, if I get too good, man, hey, hold on, I just had a bad day yesterday, so it can happen, right? It can happen, and you can't just live in just the failures because that's when it's like, man, I'm never going to be good again because y'all forgot about all the successes I had. I'm stand terrible. I'm stacking terrible days. Maybe this is not the profession for me. No, you need to be equal. You got to keep them close, success and failure. And so for me, is my self-talk was, man, I'm the baddest dude out here. I used to tell myself that anytime I walked on the field, I'm the baddest dude out here. And here's the reason. I've been putting in the work. I've been in the weight room. I'm fast. I'm explosive because I put in the work. Yes, genetics plays a role, but I've been putting in the work and I've overcome some things, right? I have two screws in this knee, right? In spite of this, and I should think, in spite of this, I played 8 years in the NFL. No, it was
Mm,
because of this setback, this failure, it caused me to have a certain amount of resilience and self-belief. So for me, when things go bad, I was playing golf the other day, played in this celebrity tournament, right? And I was having a tough day. I was having a really tough day. And I was like, man, for me, man, I talk shit to myself because I know in that environment, that gets me going. That gets me into a different type of mode, right? So, when I'm playing with my partners and they talking shit and we having a good time. And then that competitive edge, I get that. And it's like, zoom, now I'm locked in. And so I constantly try to put myself in those situations, even when I'm playing with different people and they view me a certain way and whatnot. I was like, man, I'm losing my edge. So I got to start talking ish to myself. And then as soon as I do that, boom, man, things start turning on. So I had to compete against myself, right? Because I know in the past, that's what gets me going. I love when receivers used to talk stuff to me, right? And so I get more focused, more dialed in. So we need to find out what gets us more focused, if that makes sense. So my self-talk is different, than others. But
yeah, well, I think you said it though. You nailed it on the head. What you have to find what motivates you as a person, as an individual, right? Because I am the same way as you, right? I have to talk it, if like because I do that in the gym. If I'm lifting something and I'm trying to get a personal best or something, I'm over there looking crazy. Like I know
yeah,
the people in the gym are like, this guy's a nut job. Like, what is he? But for me, I need that to be able to get under whatever I'm about to get under and move it, as far as weight
yeah.
goes. So it's
Well,
that's funny.
hold on before you pass, but before you go any further, here's what makes us different. Because you said something that was very important. Is when you're in the gym, you do these things, and then you said something about other people, right? Other people might look at you like you crazy or you whatever, and that right there, people stop. People
Mhm.
stop because they're afraid of how they're viewed by other people. One of the biggest things that separated me from from average athletes is I didn't care what they thought about me unless they was pouring into me or unless, that we had enough trust. Like I care what coaches thought of me because I know they can feel me, they can pour into me. If you couldn't pour into me, why am I not going to give you any type of influence over my life? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So people get stuck because they're worried about how other people view them. Where
It's
it
huge.
sounds like you didn't, you know. I don't.
No,
I
no,
don't
I
get, you know,
no.
I don't unless I ask you for your advice or how you think of me, you know, then I don't care
Yeah,
how you view me or how you the things that I'm doing, the way that I'm showing up on social media or whatever, it might offend people. I'm
yeah,
okay with that. I'm
I,
okay with that. I'm
yeah.
speaking my truth.
And I think that's a mark of a leader in a way, right? And I think of Kobe in these moments where Kobe never cared, but he always knew his intentions were to get the best out of the people that were around him, however he needed to do it. So if he needed to be, Bane for a day, he'll be Bane. But if he needed to be Batman, he'll be Batman, right? He knew how to lead in that sense. So I always think of Kobe, God rest his soul. He was one of my mental role models, I would say, just from that aspect. But you're so right. You can't be afraid of the outer opinions. I think mine left me as soon as my son was born. As soon as he was born, I
Mm,
was like, as long as he sees me and he smiles, and man, I could care less with
yeah.
literally anyone on earth. Like even my wife. Sometimes I'm like, hey, he's smiling at me. You might be
Yeah.
mad. He wants a graham cracker, so I'm gonna go ahead and get him that graham cracker, and we'd be good to go. Um, I appreciate that though. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump back into this though because I want to touch on your actual coaching experience, and I would like if you could share like a moment or a story in which when you coached a client through, say this self doubt or this fear of being out there, and maybe even let us know of like the results of that coaching, and how it actually went. You don't have to name the person, but I just wanted to know if like, is there a moment that sticks out in your career so far?
When somebody was stuck, is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, someone that you've coached that you've watched go from being stuck to, someone that's now moving with a little bit more purpose, moving with boldness, trying to like make a change. They're reaching their goal or their ideal self that they expressed to you at the beginning of the
Oh,
coaching.
yeah, yeah, got you. So, for me, it's all about like foundational principles. And so with my clients, it's always like, what's the end result that they're looking for? What do they want? And, for a lot of them, um, they want fulfillment. They want to start a business. They want to do whatever it is. And so I always start with, because I speak on leadership, and that's influence, right? And one of the biggest, the strongest ones for me is character. It's the thing that helped me have success in an arena, and it was the character, which is who you are. So for me, it always starts with who you are. And for most people, they can't really explain it, right? They can't like tell you, or if they do tell you, it's not totally the truth. So with my clients, I spend time with them. You know what I'm saying? I spend time with them in different environments. So now I get a true um, viewpoint of who they are. Because some people, they're great in one-on-one settings, but once they get in groups, man, they shrivel up. They play small. They act differently. And so it's super important that you know who you are. I don't believe in, yeah, and we see this all the time with in the sports world, you see it in business or whatever, even like on holiday parties, right? And somebody acts out of character.
Yeah.
I don't believe that statement. They don't act out of character. That's who they are. You just haven't seen them in that environment before. When they get in that environment, Susie acts like that. That's Susie. You only see Susie at the from 9 to 5. You don't see Susie, you know, from
From five to
six
nine.
to midnight. Yeah. No, that's who Susie is. So for me, with my clients, I spend time with them. It's not just about like talking and they tell me all the good stuff. No, I need to see and hear all the good stuff and the not so good stuff. And there's no judgment. All I'm there to do, and I don't give answers. I'm not a genie in a bottle. I just reflect back what I see and what I hear and then ask them questions. Are you okay with you know who you who you're who you are right now? Because I can tell you what I saw and what I felt. And are you okay with that? You know what I'm saying? And then if you are okay with that, okay, that's great. Do you want to change?
Mm,
And so I ask hard questions. And then if you are in a place where yes, I'm where I want to be, I think my character's up to par. Yes. So then I'm like, okay, now how do we brand this and how do we market this? Right. So you get to a certain place where, okay, I think I'm good here. Okay, now how do we brand this and how do we market this? But it starts with find out who you want to become in every situation, right? Not just the good conversations, but the hard conversations, right? And so for me, it's all about practice. It's the same things that made me pretty good at my sport is I practice intentionally, intentional practice. We can practice on being good people. We can practice on having relationships, not just transactional relationships. I do it every day. When I go and purchase something, coffee, I go in there and I can easily, what most people do, and you start to notice that people go in there, yeah, let me get that um, grande Americano, please. You might get that.
might
Me, I come in there, you might get it, please. I come in there, and no matter how they look or they might be like maybe grumpy, right? I go in there, first thing out of my mouth, hey, how are you doing today? How's your day going? Oh, man, that's a cool shirt. Where'd you get that at? I try to make it relational, not just transactional. And so it takes a little bit of investment of time. I'm cool with that. 15 seconds, I'm okay with that. Maybe the person behind me might not be, but I'm okay with that. I don't care. So I ask them who they are, how their day is going. Oh, that's great. Man, what do you think I should get? I'm new here. I don't know what the. So it's about that. I get to practice it every day, any and every interaction, because I know you're one conversation from the viewpoint that you might have, it can be changed forever. So I don't take that lightly. Any interaction that I have with people, man, I can get it. I can be inspired. Yeah, I know I can be inspiring, but I can be inspired to be something maybe that that I haven't seen something before. I can be inspired to do something great because I heard a viewpoint or heard a story or I saw somebody that brought me to tears. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, very powerful.
that's huge. And it's funny because it was you answered the next question I wanted to ask was a daily thing that you do or a daily ritual that helps you with your leadership tactics. And to me, I believe that one right there is the development of character on a day-to-day basis, really really focusing and being intentional on the type of person you are more so than the things you gain from anything. It's simply just being the, identifying the type of person you want to be and then being that thing, and
Absolutely.
practicing it every single day. Wow.
And
Yeah.
and so here's the cool thing is because I'm very intentional with how I show up, the person that I want to be. I always think that, man, my wife and my 8 kids are somewhere close by.
Mm. Yeah.
That keeps me on the straight and narrow, right? My wife, would they be proud of how I interact with people? So on the character side, I keep that, and of course my faith, but I keep that close by. And here's something that like I practice, with my character and leadership and influence, because we're influenced by different things. Um, and so I have a speaking engagement tonight. Do you think that I practice what I'm going to talk about? I'm going to tell you
Absolutely.
because I practice the impact that I want to have every day. So really, I don't sit down and like, okay, I'm going to say these words. I'm going to move like this. I'm going to do it. Man, I write it down like the topic that's going to hit home and it's going to be relatable to the group of people. And then I think about something that happened a week ago or yesterday or even today. I'm going to talk about this conversation today when I'm talking with these group of middle school athletes. I can because I can pull from because I practice it right, and I can pull principles out of different conversations or different things that has happened to me. And so I always stay on. I can be able to talk and make an impact because I'm always on.
I love that.
So
It's, I
yeah.
love that because it's that skill right there. Because I know that's something that I'm working on as well. So if you could for the audience, what exactly do you think is like a cue for you when you're having these conversations on how to take what you learn in a conversation and then story tell it later? Because I believe from what you do as being a speaker and an author, you're a great storyteller as well. How do you take these conversations and then turn them into stories? And this might be more of like a just a me question too, because I'm
hmm
genuinely curious on how that happens because I know I've been working on it as well.
Well, it's when you and it's something that we've been talking about already is when you start to not think about situations. You know what I'm saying? And not making it situational, but from those different situations, what is the foundation that somebody is talking about or they're trying to express? So it's situational, right? As compared to foundational. I can take different stories or things that I've seen and I can pull out what's the foundational principle that is being missed or is spot on. And I can talk about that. I can just break it all down and, talk about what the foundational principle of why that person or that situation was successful or why it was a failure.
You bring it back to your framework,
Yes,
so
right.
I think that's the key point there because you have a framework that you are mentally already in, and so now because of that framework, you can see every conversation through
Yeah.
that framework.
I can see past all
Uh,
the words. I can
wow,
see past all the hand gestures, how people communicate, which is an influencer. I can see past all of that. You know, I can really see and listen to like, man, the words that they're using, how they move, how they interact with people, and I can find out the character because that's one of the biggest influencers for me is I look at who the character of that person is. And
yeah,
then I ask myself, do I want to be tied to that? Or do I don't want to have anything to do with that person. I'll sit down with anybody for a cup of coffee. You know what I'm saying? Like I won't, I sit down once. And then once I find out, man, if I'm going to jive with this person or if I'm going to do business with this person, I can find out some things.
yeah. No, that's super insightful. Last one for you, Alex. Before I let you go, I have one question. What's one piece of advice that you'd give your younger self or someone that's a young entrepreneur stepping into leadership? What's one piece of advice that you would give them?
Great question. I think it would be find a mentor or coach that has the character, not just the knowledge, not just the frameworks, not just the relationships, but also has the character. Because you can learn something from anybody, right? You can learn something from anybody. I would say you can learn something from somebody who has a horrible character, right? I would say, man, get a mentor, get a coach that you respect, how they move, how they operate, and not being afraid to ask them different questions of where you want. I have multiple coaches and different, I had a book coach. to coach me how to write books. I had a leadership and personal development coach. I had a speaking coach because that's a shortcut. They have success in something that I want, and they can perhaps give me a shortcut. I will pay, right? But I also want to see, I want to know what type of character they have. And you can see that how they operate online. You can spend some time with them, right? And
Yeah.
then you can ultimately invest in it to get you where you want to go faster. But you got to pay attention to the character.
Yeah. Man, that's huge, man. Well, Alex, appreciate you coming on the platform. I really do appreciate it. Um, and thank you. I hope our audience got a lot out of this. I know I got a lot out of it. You can see through my notes that I've taken because
Love it.
to me
Love it.
is, anytime I talk to you, I get such great insights. I feel like every time we talk, it's a great coaching session for me, even if it's saying some of the same things. I may have heard it differently this time. And,
Mm,
I really do appreciate it every single time we have a conversation. So I appreciate you,
absolutely.
Alex. Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
very much for having me on.
of course,
Man, if people want to, find out a little bit more about me, they can just check out my website. It's alexmolden.com. And I have 2 books out. And yeah, man, I want to inspire others to be the best version of themselves in every environment.
love it. I love it. Well, thank you for joining us. And to my peeps out there in the YouTubers verse, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, I hope you enjoyed this great listen with Alex Molden, and we'll see you on the next episode.